On this episode, we're putting one of the biggest Walt Disney World debates to the test, staying on property versus off property. Today's February 20th, 2026, and this is episode 848 of the Main Street Magic Podcast.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts, Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Main Street Magic. I am your host, Jeremy Stein, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely wife, Rhonda.
Hey guys!
If you want to be part of the community and join the conversation, get the latest theme park news, as well as live streams from the parks and resorts, head to Facebook and search for the Main Street Magic community and ask to join.
Make sure you check us out on the web at mainstmagic.com, as well as follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at mainstmagic, and on TikTok at MSM Podcast.
Planning a trip to Disneyland or Walt Disney World can be overwhelming and at times just downright frustrating. But don't worry, because Mouse Dining removes the frustration of booking Disney dining reservations, alerting you when they spot availability for your desired restaurant, date, meal, and time. Visit msmfriends.com to use this free service.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can get brand new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.
Are you ready for your bucket list trip? Our trusted partner, MEI-Travel, will handle the planning so you can focus on the memories. They offer free vacation planning services and have nearly 20 years of experience creating memorable vacations. Visit mainstmagic.com/travel for a fee-free, no-obligation quote today.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed our last episode, which was our live dining. And we didn't get to sit down in the office, I guess, and kind of record because it was live and tell how the day went. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about it today.
Sure. Yeah.
And first I want to say hey to Kelly, Andrew, and Justin. They all stopped us while we were there on Valentine's Day. I hope y'all had a wonderful Valentine's. Thank you for stopping and saying hi.
Yeah.
It was
fun.
Awesome. I love that.
Amongst the sea of people.
I just started to say
yeah,
it was
so crazy.
Super, super busy. All we did was eat. Mm-hmm. Literally, we had lunch and dessert.
Yeah.
And when we walked by Star Tours, because we were just kind of walking and getting ready for lunch, it was all outside in the queue. Mm-hmm. Over a 35-minute wait.
Alien swirling saucers was 80 minutes.
It was crazy.
Which has to be you could go back to different theme park data sites and see what the longest wait time ever is for certain rides. I would love to see what it is at Alien Swirling Saucers, on opening weekend. Yeah. Probably the only time it would have topped around there.
Yeah,
so,
it was very busy.
It was crazy.
It was
holiday
a
weekend.
Beautiful day. It was a holiday weekend. It was for us Florida, and I'm possibly assuming maybe all of Florida teachers in-service day, so that meant the kids were off for 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just really, really busy, but a gorgeous day. We had a great time. I hope y'all liked it. We can do more of those.
So I had a question for you, and I'm debating it as far as a live dining review is for you and I to do Enchante. I'm only debating it because I don't want to take away from our own experience, but I think that could be a super cool live dining review on the Disney Destiny in 2 months from now. My parents
are able to.
We embark, right? That's the word getting on.
I believe so.
De-embark and embark.
Uh-huh.
We embark 60 days from today.
Mm-hmm.
So
my parents were released, unfortunately, because this is their first one ever to book, and I am able to now book for them. So I went in, and on Nassau Bahama Day, I called my mommy, and they don't care about getting off either.
Right.
So we are going to have now Palo brunch.
Yeah. Which will be interesting because if you go back and remember, and I know Chuck and Amy do, when we did the Palo brunch on the Magic 2 years ago,
It was not that good.
it wasn't that great. We didn't have a great experience, and that was all four of us. You know, and I know Chuck and Amy would agree. So I'll be very
Rachel's
interested to do it
always
again.
had really good ones.
Yep.
So
and we had a wonderful dinner with Lucy and Caleb back on the Wish 4 years ago at
we
Palo.
absolutely did.
So I'm very excited to do that. And I don't remember if you already just said this on our actual 20th anniversary.
Yeah,
is
all
the
four
day
of
that
us.
we'll do it on
Yep.
April 22nd.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That'll be exciting because I
Yeah.
wanted to get Enchante for our lunch on our anniversary, and it just wasn't available when we were booking at our 90. But the fact that we'll get to do this,
So
will be super cool.
we'll do both paid extras
Yep.
lunches, and then we will get to enjoy all of our nights with
every dining rotation
dining
and
rotation.
everything at night. So
I'm
super excited for
I'm
that.
excited to start packing, but actually I'm like, I don't like, we have so much coming up and
I know
I
we
don't
have so
want
much
to wish.
between now and
I know.
then. So
much.
Yeah, we're taking separate trips this weekend. You are heading to Athens, Georgia, and the University of Georgia. To see
Bailey Zimmerman.
concert there with Tina and not your daughters.
Yeah. Alexia.
It was neither one of your daughters. And then I'm gonna head down and see Kat and Michael for Friday at Disney, and then fly to Maryland on Saturday to catch the Duke Michigan game, the Capital One Arena, I believe it
gonna be
is.
exciting.
Very excited. Michigan is now ranked number 1 in the country, and Duke is ranked number 3. So this game is huge. And it looks like we got pretty good seats. So going with
nervous?
my brother. I am, because the last time I attended a Duke game was a big game, and it didn't turn out so well. So very excited for that. But today is all about on-property versus on-property hotel stays when you're going to Walt Disney World.
You just said on property versus on property.
On property versus off property.
Okay.
Shows where my brain already is, because I know which way we feel. And this really comes, we have done a lot of off property stays recently.
Yep.
And we have, hit everywhere in the Flamingo Crossing area. Which
And I
we
love that area.
We absolutely love.
Love it.
We have now hit, and I'll hit one more. I didn't even realize that's where I'm staying Friday night, is the Hilton Garden Inn on Palm Parkway. Where we have now recently stayed at the Courtyard, the Aloft, the Town Place Suites. There's half a dozen or more. There's a Rosen Inn there we haven't done yet, but there's a good amount of hotels that run Palm Parkway right there by Disney Springs. There's Marriott Village that we have stayed at, I think 2 out of the 3. They're over there near the outlets. We have stayed now at some point in time every Disney Springs hotel. So we have hit a lot of these off-property
But we
areas.
have not hit any of the
Bonnet Creek.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Bonnet Creek. Now, I have stayed at a Bonnet Creek hotel one night. I stayed at the Signia with my brother, but I slept on a pull-out couch for a very short time. But it's one of the lower priced hotels in Bonnet Creek, so we do want to hit some of the Bonnet Creek area, but hitting these off-property locations recently, anywhere from 1 to 3 nights like we did at the Aloft, it has raised that question, because the reason that we did all those stays was to save money.
Correct.
So what we're going to talk about is not only on versus off and whether it saves you money or not, but we also want to put important value on all the other things that go with it.
100%.
So we'll kind of break it down into a bunch of different categories and just have a discussion on them. But one thing we do want to start with, these are a couple kind of quick things that we're not going to dive deep into.
Right.
But depending on your party, time of year, your budget and all, you may want to dive in further.
100%. And a lot of people will tell me this. And the first one is hotel points. And of course, credit card rewards.
Yes.
But the number one is the hotel points. I have
Yeah.
a lot of people will look at me and, when I'm like, ooh, where are you staying? When they tell me, a lot of times they're like, well, we're staying on points.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And I can tell you right now, for somebody who is like my brother, who travels nonstop and who gets points nonstop for just say a Marriott,
Right.
it could be in his mind to really go, all right, I'm bringing my kids to Disney. I've got all these points that could get me 4-5 nights basically at a Marriott property, which, by the way, could be Swan Dolphin, Swan Reserve, but in general, it obviously might make more sense just to use those points.
Right.
But we're not going to dig deep into that because you can't really put that financial value, and that's not all of us. Rhonda and I, if you look at our different hotel accounts, our points are very, very minimum because we mostly stay on Disney property. So we're not going to dive way deep into Airbnbs, into different vacation rentals like Vrbo and things like that. Those come best into play when you're coming from overseas and you're putting in 2 weeks here in Orlando.
Right.
And it's going to make sense. But when we talk about some of the other stuff, go ahead and think, well, what is the cost of an Airbnb per night? And that's another thing. We have looked at Airbnbs for some different things, and I had to research a bunch for this Final Four stay in Indianapolis. And Airbnb has gotten a lot better about showing you the overall cost up front, but it's still one you got to watch out for. When you look at something and go, whoa, $300 a night, and I get like a 5-bedroom house or something.
Right.
And then you add cleaning fees, you add, all these other fees that go along with it. It's no longer $300 a night.
Right.
So something to think about. We're not going to dive deep into renting DVC points. And we're not going to talk very much about combining parks. If you're coming down for a week and you're doing half of your stay at Disney and half of yours over at Universal, that's a whole other conversation. And we can certainly do an episode on that, but I think that's just very, very different. So let's get down to one of the things that I think is probably number one, which is the cost. Yeah. And cost matters when you have a budget, right?
Correct.
So the first thing you have to do is figure out your budget. And then everything we talk about can work within that. And don't just have a hotel per night budget, right? And think that that's the end all be all. You don't just say, all right, we're going to go for a week and we've got $1,500 to spend on a room. And you're not taking into consideration all the other things that we're going to talk about, like the dining, and whether that hotel has breakfast or not, or if you got to buy it, whether it has a kitchen or not, and you're going to order groceries from Vacation Grocery Delivery or whatever it may be. So you have to think really, you're good at this. If I say to you, you're good at asking this question. If I say to you, say, Rhonda, we're going to go stay at Disney for 3 nights. It's $937. What do you say immediately?
How much is it per night?
Yeah. And I actually think that's pretty important because of all the extra costs that can go with it. You know what I mean? So if you start, I think, with a per night budget, I think that's the better way, and then add up how many nights as opposed to working backwards. I think it makes more sense to say, I know this sounds silly probably, but I think it's more important to say our budget is $300 a night instead of our budget for 4 nights is $1,200. Because when you're looking at rates, you're often not factoring in all those extra costs. So you might be saying, all right, we're looking at $300 a night. And the room rate is $285. And you're like, cool.
Right.
You haven't thought about
tax and title.
Yeah. Taxes and resort fees or parking fees or whatever it may be. So let's talk about some of the pros of staying on property. What is included pretty much once you get on property after you've paid for your Disney resort, right?
Yeah. Transportation is included.
Transportation.
And depending on where you're staying, at what room, you can have anywhere from one thing that's a transportation, which is strictly bus only, or all the way up to 4 monorail.
No, I don't believe anybody
Skyliner,
off the top of my head has
boat.
all 4. Yeah, nobody has all 4, but
still.
Yes, I'm saying different modes of transportation.
Right.
Yes.
Like, like if you're at Epcot and you're going to Hollywood, but you're staying on the monorail, you can still skyline and
you can still move your way around.
Right.
Yeah, so transportation is included.
Yeah.
What else is included?
Probably the biggest thing is no extra parking fee if you drive.
Yeah.
So that's always huge.
It's
and
very
then if you do drive, no parking if you want to park at the
Parks.
Parks. Thank you.
Yep.
I was trying to say resorts, but no.
Yeah. So no additional parking fees,
Right.
whether you have a vehicle or not.
Yeah.
So that's all included. Does Disney Hotel, and when we're saying on property versus off property, by the way, we're really talking Disney owned hotels versus non-owned hotels a lot.
Yeah.
We're kind of leaving out Swan Dolphin, Swan Reserve, Disney Springs hotels, because they're on Disney property, but they can have additional fees and charges.
And
So
I believe they do.
yes, most all of them do.
Yeah.
You're going to get hit with resort and parking fees
Right.
at your Swan Dolphin, Swan Reserve.
That's the hardest part at Swan and Dolphin, because you might see like, oh, wow. Like I remember looking years and years ago, and I don't even look anymore, but I remember looking and I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's $150 a night.
You're like, this is unbelievable.
But then you
it's believable.
pretty much had to add another $80 on top.
Yep.
That is parking and your fee for your resort. And then what's sad is a lot of times this would be like winter.
Yeah.
And I would be like, I ain't getting in the pool.
Right.
So,
So you're not even using
I'm
the
like, man,
resort amenities.
I just want to sleep in the room.
But who doesn't have resort fees?
All the resorts that are Disney owned
Yeah.
property.
Yeah. So no additional fees there. You do get some bonuses such as early entry, right? So 30-minute early entry. These now saying there's no parking fee. There's no parking fees at the parks. There's no resort fees. Those have dollars, right?
Yeah.
Those you can actually attach a financial amount to. You can't really attach a financial amount to 30-minute early entry, but you can sure as heck put a financial amount on time.
I just started to say,
Right.
They say time is money.
Yeah.
So, and if you can get there and rope drop and be early
Yep.
and get, one of the rides that you really want done, and you get to say you did it, then.
And
there
to be
you go.
honest, sometimes that actually can save you money because you're not buying a Lightning Lane single pass
Correct.
or a multi-pass, maybe, depending on what you can accomplish. So you have to think of that. Also, if you are deluxe resort, you have those extended hours for certain deluxe resort or for certain parks on certain days for deluxe resorts. So again, while it doesn't technically have a dollar amount attached to it, it does.
Yeah.
Another advantage by staying on those Disney properties, the Disney-owned properties, is 7-day booking window for Lightning Lanes, as opposed to the 3-day if you're off property.
That's true.
That is really, now the price is the same, right?
Yeah. Which is crazy.
Right. It kind of is actually. But the price is exactly the same. So if it was a $30 multi-pass on property, it's a $30 multi-pass off property. But your selection is completely different. So the value you get out of that $30 is completely different. If you're booking it 3 days, your chances of getting Slinky Dog are significantly less for your $30 you spent than it is at 7 days.
Yep.
So you got to think of those types of things. Now, what are a couple cons of staying on Disney property?
Well, like we were just saying, they don't charge you for parking and stuff. It's kind of roped into the nightly rates. So your nightly rate might be a little higher. When I say, like, what is it a night? It might be like $180 or so for a value, or even to something now.
And the other difference I would say with the higher room cost really starts to come into play, I feel like, when you get to the moderates and especially deluxes, because when you start to compare just say a 2-bedroom at a deluxe to a 2-bedroom at a Town Place Suites at Flamingo Crossing, we're no longer talking apples and apples, right? I mean, this is like fruits and vegetables, so at that point it really does get so much higher.
Yeah. And I almost would rather, though, even though we're saying it's a con, I would almost rather it anywhere else, like off property. Like, don't tell me that there's this parking and that and this. Just tell me the nightly rate is,
I know,
$210, $215, whatever.
Yeah.
But also with another con is you do get, for what we feel can be smaller rooms for the price. I mean, really on Disney property, unless like Jeremy's talking about, you get into the deluxe and you do like 1 or 2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
I mean, you're really getting just a bathroom and a bed to sleep in.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of extra room to be in the room if you were going to be.
Right.
And then, of course, there's only a small little fridge,
Mm-hmm.
so there's no microwave or anything like that.
Yeah, the in-room amenities aren't great, and your selection of types of rooms are slim. Again, sometimes I feel like I can go to some of these off properties and they've got, king beds, and then larger king beds with a living room, then 2 queen beds with a living room, a 2-bedroom, a balcony, a not a balcony. So their options for whatever your family makeup may be usually is a lot better. So let's move on. We've talked about the transportation and the convenience on property, obviously, and not having to pay for any additional transportation.
Yeah.
Right. So the convenience is so much greater. We know that getting a Disney bus, a boat, a Skyliner, the monorail, if you just want to say it's every 15 minutes, say that. We know that can fluctuate greatly for all of those, but it is consistent. Hour or so prior to park opening, hour or so after park closes, your transportation is constant. It's there. It's all within the property.
Yes.
If you are flying in, usually your biggest concern is getting from the airport to your Disney resort.
Correct.
And then if you want, you do not need to rent a car.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Now talk some about your options usually when you are off property and staying.
Well, you have some transportation, but that's a lot, I guess, could be hit or miss depending on where it's at. Some don't have it at all. Some do. Then you have to schedule it.
Yeah.
Do you have to pay for some?
Some you do. Some you will pay per person. A lot of them are included. I feel like the further away you get, obviously, from Disney property, the chances of them charging you like $2 a person or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, often you have to schedule it.
You have to schedule it, but you also don't have the availability. That's what I'm trying to say. Without with you do property, because off property, they might not start until after it's rope drop, and so now you can't.
It might just be first bus runs at 9 a.m. or something.
Right.
Last bus might run coming back from the park at 9 p.m.
Right.
On a day that Magic Kingdom is open till 11 or whatever. So in that instance, you're up to whatever their availability is, whatever their cost may be, if not.
And then some of them will drop you off at TTC, where then, let's say you're, I guess, going to Animal Kingdom.
You'd have to then from the TTC take a bus or transportation to Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
From there.
So it's just it can be very hard and frustrating.
It's not worth it. I've yet to,
and I agree.
Yeah, and I understand that we have a vehicle on property and all.
This is where I would say, if you're gonna do something like this, just have a car.
I agree.
Because
I would drive to the parks.
Yeah.
But guess what?
Then you're
now
paying
you got to pay for parking. So this is now where you look and go, all right, is renting a car, and we'll break down a little bit of that math at the end, is renting a car for $200 for the week or whatever it may be, plus paying $35 daily parking, worth whatever savings I may get by staying off property? Or does it make more sense to say, you know what, we're going to budget in $50 a day for Uber to and from?
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about the Ubers.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, at that point, though, if you got littles, it is going to be much harder to get an Uber that contains a car seat, or you're bringing your own car seats. That's a whole other travel ordeal. So this is one where, I think it's just too many people look at the surface level when they're comparing on property to off property. Mm-hmm. And they say, Disney has free transportation. This off property hotel has free transportation. Cool. Right. I'm going to go off property because I'm going to save money per night on the room or whatever it may be and get a bigger room.
And absolutely.
You're not, though, possibly.
I mean, but you can if you're not planning to be rope dropping and closing the park down. Right. And if you're okay with not, getting those lightning lanes 7 days out. If you're going to do something like that, you get, that. so you just got to see what fits best for you. But
that's where most people don't dive deeper.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. Like surface level, they go, free transportation, cool. And then they get there and they go, whoa, what? We can't even leave the hotel till 8 a.m.? Animal Kingdom opens at 8:30 a.m. or 8 a.m. and we wanted to be there. And, so that's where they don't start to think. Or last minute they go, well, now, you know what? This first day was miserable with this included transportation off property. We're going to start taking Ubers. Well, we didn't budget for Ubers.
Right.
We're going to go out and rent a car real quick. Well, we didn't budget for any of that.
Yeah.
So you have to think about those things when you're looking at the off property there. Another thing you have to think about the convenience, especially when you have younger kids or older kids or just people. Sometimes you need that midday break sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. And it's so hard depending, and especially if you're staying over off of Flamingo Crossing, depending on the time.
Break in the middle of the afternoon.
Holy crap. Yeah. It is crazy. We have seen the line to try to get there. Probably it'd take 20 minutes or 30 minutes.
Just to get up Western Way.
Yeah.
Which should normally be a 5-minute drive or something.
Yeah.
So, that convenience is huge. And, even if you are driving and you're not worrying about the Disney transportation, you're on property, which means that getting back to your hotel is still quicker than off property, even if you're driving, because it's closer. It's on property,
Right.
So different things like that to think of. All right. Let's talk about some of the perks, time advantages for Disney. We already talked about the early theme park entry of 30 minutes. Is it an advantage? Sometimes.
Yeah. I think it really depends on where you're going and what you're wanting to do that day. And we've seen it at Epcot, we're there and we're going to do a festival. And then we're like, oh, but we wouldn't mind riding Test Track. And I always say, if it's, 8:30 opening and it's going to open at 9 for other people, get there at 8:45.
Yeah.
Because, that's a really good time because, they've already let in and it's starting to I think it's just the perfect time.
Yeah. And here's the thing, let's say you get one or two things done in that initial 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. That is an advantage because that's 30 minutes you save later in the day. So in reality, you're saving an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get the extra 30.
100%.
You don't have to do that 30 later. You just got an hour of your day back. Yeah. And again, if you are rope dropping certain things like a Cosmic Rewind, then you don't potentially have to pay for that single pass. So there's your money yet again that you're saving.
Yep.
7-day Lightning Lane booking window we talked about. So that's big. The extended hours if you are doing deluxe. So these are all things I think you just need to factor in because, again, we want to get you off that surface level. Stop floating at the top of the water. Yeah. You got to dive down and see what else is under that. All right, let's talk some about the Disney bubble. How do you feel about the Disney bubble? How important is the Disney bubble to you? Because I do think that it's something that enough people maybe don't take into consideration.
As I just was
especially after these several recent
I love it.
Off-property
stays.
I
just love it. The cast members, walking around, just seeing, the atmosphere, seeing, your five senses, seeing, smelling, touching, even depending if you're at Art of Animation and the big giant over at
over the cars section,
and then just everything, sights, sounds, the music, depending where you're walking from, all of it, so fun.
Yeah, it's the theming. You are within this Disney world, no matter what, and so the magic is everywhere you go. And then you have to think of things like the amenities and stuff that they're putting near the pool, the activities that they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
That the lifeguards are doing.
That.
There's always stuff going on there that you often don't get at an off-property.
And if it's raining, don't worry. They're still usually going on. They're just inside somewhere. So just go find it.
Movies under the stars. All these different things and advantages that you get. Now, some of the things that might be an advantage for off property that I could see for someone like my brother is the mental reset of not being within the Disney magic 24/7. You know what I mean? Where you get to go back, you get a mental break. There can be something to be said about being within the Disney bubble during a cheerleader or dance weekend, right?
Yeah.
At a value resort.
I think it's still cool.
We still think it's fun, but again, it's being contained within all of this.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of destinations within, I would say, like the United States. I'm thinking, or outside of all-inclusive Caribbean style resorts and things like that, where whether you're driving, flying, you don't have to worry about anything for the time that you're there. So everything is just contained and everything is within. And I do think the theming is a big part of a Disney vacation. The theming at your resort, the theming within your room, around the grounds and all that type of stuff as well. So, again, I don't think enough people kind of think of that part. All right, let's talk about the space and the comfort. I know we touched a little bit on Disney resorts. For the most part, what I feel like is the average guest is going to be staying in a studio, right? A queen bed studio. Yep. It's going to have a very standard bathroom. It's going to have that mini fridge cooler, they call it, beverage cooler. You might get lucky and have a table and some chairs, but for the most part, your space is not plentiful.
Yeah, and I was going to say you might get lucky because some of the studios do have what's called the fifth sleeper.
Yep.
Which is pull down, and that's kind of cool. But like Jeremy just said, overall it is a smaller area. Again, our girls are older now, so if we don't have the fifth sleeper, for example, there's times where they do not want to sleep together. So we would want to bring a single air mattress, and depending on the studio that you're in, unfortunately, you can't even put an air mattress down.
I mean, it really doesn't, and you can't open the door to get in and out. So something to think about now. Again, if you're moving up to those larger rooms,
right?
1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, villas, and all this stuff, but that comes with such a great cost.
Yes,
so you have to take that in consideration. Whereas off property, even the studios can be pretty large. When I think about the space we had in something that be considered a studio, the King Bed Town Place Suites we just stayed at.
Yeah.
with tons
the
of
one
closet
we did
space for the Halloween party over, was that the Fairfield or the Residence Inn? Well, I can't remember if it was the Fairfield Inn or the Residence Inn over at Flamingo Crossing. Yeah. That room was huge, has a full kitchen, and it's their smallest room.
And a couch.
Yeah.
And a king bed, and then that couch, I don't think it pulled. Did it pull
that one?
Out?
I can't remember.
It
that
did.
one,
Actually, I think it did.
That one did. Yeah.
And then there was a chase lounge on the end of that couch.
Yep.
And then there was literally, I feel like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I do feel like it was so big we could have still put an air mattress down.
Oh, I'm sure we could have.
And
in
then
that
fine.
Yeah, and a lot of things, we're talking about having a family of 4 when you've got a 15 and 18-year-old, you really do have to think about the bathroom situation. A lot of these off properties will have larger bathroom areas that some might contain a sink in the same full bathroom that has the toilet and the shower, but also have another sink outside of it.
Right.
With
or
a mirror.
Yeah,
or mirrors or whatever it may be. So you have a lot more space. For the most part, 99.9% of the time that you and I travel to Disney World, it's just the 2 of us now.
Yeah.
And it is for 1 or 2 nights.
Right.
So space for us isn't huge.
Correct.
Even now, if we were to go stay in a 2-queen moderate resort, right? We were to go stay at Coronado in a 2-queen room over in Ranchos or something, and we were going to stay for 7 nights, that space is going to probably feel slightly smaller every single day. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
I wish they would just refurb every single room and have to
do the Murphy beds with the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got Coronado was on the front end of them doing all that. They were before they decided to start doing that at the values and all. But I'm sure, that's the way they're doing with all these DVC refurbs. So I think that is the route they're going. That's very different. Now, if you and I were to have to stay a week at an All-Star, that might be a little bit easier
Yeah, it
to
would.
handle in that sense.
It
So
would.
you really got to think about those room layouts. Another thing with off property, you got to think about is some of these will have washers and dryers in the rooms when you get to some of these larger, like more family style suites. So it's an easier access for those types of things.
Yeah.
Plus, honestly, the storage. The closets at like a Town Place Suites,
Are
if you
huge.
were staying for a
Yeah.
week with a family of 4, you're not going to have to worry a lot about storage.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're staying at a Disney studio,
But
four
remember,
people for a
they've
week?
done a lot of good and refurbs, and there's a lot of under the bed
Yes.
storage. So
but it's putting away and pulling out.
yeah, that's true.
Stuff. You know what I
But-
mean? As opposed to you could put your stuff up everywhere in some of these other
Yeah.
off-property
True.
locations, I think. So, all right, food access. One thing you can get on property that you cannot get off property is the dining plan.
Yeah, because isn't it like per night? Like it's
Yeah, you
and
have
then
to be
the-
on property, and then they're basing it per
on the
person per night.
Yeah,
So
because we still need to do this.
I know, but it's we have to put. It's hard for us to do it as pass holders that go for a
100%.
night or two. Obviously,
100%.
we have to completely change our entire
Right.
structure of our trip to do it.
But you can still have it. It's great, because then you could go down and have breakfast on
Mm-hmm.
the dining plan.
And just having that access, we've done dining plan episodes. Is it worth it or not? And
Right.
that's something we can always revisit, depending on when we did the last one. Probably whenever it came
Been
back.
a long time.
It's been a while, but it's that convenience and that almost all-inclusive feel.
Yeah.
So when you're budgeting ahead of time, it's hard to budget for food.
Yeah.
It is very, very hard.
100%.
Well, let's say this: it's not hard to budget for food. It's hard to stick to a budget for food.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we did it pre-COVID. I'm
Yeah.
95% sure.
dining plans.
Yeah.
I mean, we did it. We did it forever before we became pass holders. We've not
Yeah.
done a dining plan for a decade.
Wow.
So
we need to do it.
But it's that feeling of my trip is paid for. So
I
not
know, and
only
it
am
was
I on
great.
property
Yeah.
and I'm not going to arrive to my Disney hotel and have a sticker shock from resort fees or from parking fees or driving to the park and then having to pay parking there each day.
Mm-hmm.
All my dining has already been paid for and taken care of ahead of time,
that includes-
including snacks.
And refillable mugs.
Yes, and your refillable mugs. So
which
really,
is super nice.
you again, if you are super budgeted and you can stick to it, you could show up and not spend a dime outside of merchandise, which I'm sure you're going to want to buy some, but you could stick to that. You really could say, we don't have to spend on food while we're here. It's already been paid for. We've already budgeted and we've worked it out. As opposed to going, oh, you know what? We're going to spend $250 a day on food. No, you're not.
Yeah.
We're going to allot this, that, and the other thing. It's not going to work that way.
Right.
You're going to go over budget most likely.
Yeah.
So you have that availability. You're going to have I'll call it a full service restaurant, but you're going to have at least a food court with constant food options.
Oh, yeah.
All day long. And then when you get to the moderates and you get to the deluxes, you're going to have sit down restaurants as well. You cannot guarantee these off properties. A lot of these off properties do not have a restaurant. They have a market,
Right.
which a lot of times is grab and go items. Now they will include free hot breakfast at
Yes.
many of these off property resorts.
Yeah.
And that's where you can start to put a dollar sign on it.
Yeah.
So you can say, well, we're a big breakfast family, just say. Normally, if we would spend $10 per breakfast per person per day, that's a saving of $40 to $50 every single day
Yeah.
by staying off property. And again,
Yep.
we'll do some of that math later as well. What about some other advantages, though, of off property?
Off property, well, I mean, yeah, like we were saying, like back to the one over at Flamingo Crossing. I mean, we had a full kitchen with
Yeah.
real plates and a dishwasher and everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Garbage disposal. So then you can get groceries from vacation grocery delivery
yep.
and have them delivered there. And it's, I mean, then you can, if you're planning on being in the parks, kind of during the day and then coming back to the resort or hotel,
Yep.
and, cooking and hanging out and just finishing your night like that, then, that's great. And then like, again, Flamingo Crossing. The reason I keep saying this is because I think if you ask us, and correct me if you feel wrong or the same, that would be our go-to. Well, that would be
Flamingo
my
Crossing area is
number
our go-to,
one pick.
Yes,
off
because of the
property.
convenience. It's like its own little city now.
Right.
But even like the Palm Parkway, because I know you're going towards, you can eat at local restaurants.
Well, that's where I
which
was
will
going
often
with.
be cheaper than
and it's-
Disney restaurants,
yeah,
right?
Yes.
So,
And
even
they're
Palm
all
Parkway,
right there.
There's so many
Yeah.
along that Palm Parkway area. So yeah, you have to think about that. I also want to touch base on the groceries in the kitchen and all of that, because this is another one where, get out of your floaty, get out of your tube and go underwater, because you have to think about the reality and actuality of you doing this. It's real
true.
easy to say, hey, you know what? Every single day we're going to take a break at about 1 p.m. and we're going to go back to our hotel room off property that has a full kitchen, and we're going to have done vacation grocery delivery, and we're going to make sandwiches, and we're going to use a kitchen and make grilled cheese. We're going to do all this stuff, right? Or, you know what? To save money, every night we're going to go back and we're going to eat dinner in the room. You probably aren't. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's just, again, you can have every plan in the world to do that. Things are going to go awry. You're going to find yourself all of a sudden at lunch inside the park and your kids don't want to leave, and now you got to shell out money for quick service. And at the end of your trip, you're flying home and you got a bunch of groceries you got to get rid of, throw in the trash because you didn't use them.
Yeah.
Same thing, dinner starts to roll around. You walk past that restaurant and the kids really, really want to eat there, and now you got to take time to go back. We're not a family because our schedules and our older kids who aren't around a lot and whatever's going on, we're not a family that cooks dinner at home every single night and sits down and eats it. Why on earth would we think that we're going to do that on a Disney vacation, right?
Yeah, you're
This
right.
isn't like staying at a beach house on the beach
Yeah, that's true.
where you say, hey, we're going to go spend the day at the beach. And you know what? Instead of hauling a cooler and all down to the beach, we're just going to go back, right there, or walk a block or two, make sandwiches at our little Airbnb, and then come back and spend the afternoon at the beach. This is not like that. So
That's true.
I know that in theory, you think it's a great idea to order all these groceries. And when you do it, get them from Vacation Grocery Delivery.
100%.
But, to do all this and have all these plans, your best bet is to plan to eat breakfast in your room every day if you're staying off property or on, because you could have things delivered for that, or take advantage of the free breakfast if it's available.
Correct.
But just think about that.
Yes, and if you are having a full kitchen, though, and I say that, but like you were talking about coming back and making sandwiches, make those sandwiches before and just take them with you.
Yep. Get one of those backpack coolers or whatever it is. You can take them all into the parks.
Yep.
No loose ice, no glass.
Yep.
And that's a big advantage. Now,
Huge.
I will say, sometimes late night in Disney resorts, I feel like I've gotten so much better. Their quick services usually are open till 11 p.m.
Yeah.
We still have a lot of park closings at 9 or 10 p.m. so you can get back and have food options. Sometimes that's not available at Disney. That's where, maybe you are off property and you get back to your room close to midnight. And I don't know who would ever do this, but somebody wants to throw like a frozen pizza in the stove, the oven that you have there in the room. There's always those types of availabilities. But I just want people to be realistic about their trips.
No, it's true.
And I don't think enough people are.
And the reason we're not really talking more about Disney Springs area, talking about like the off property stuff, is because like you just walk to Disney Springs.
Yes,
and
yeah.
there's where all your stuff is.
There's more
so.
dining there.
Right.
And Disney Springs, we'll go through a couple extra fees at the end here, but Disney Springs hotels have a lot of the bait and switch. You know, it's a lot of, wow, room rate is $150 a night. Sweet. There's 25 parking. There's a 30 resort fee. And you don't include a breakfast?
Correct.
Because many of them don't. Drury does. And we'll be staying there again
Yay.
here March 7th, and we'll try and take advantage of the food.
Right.
But they charge you a $25 or whatever it is parking fee.
Right.
So, again, just those things to think about. All right. We'll break this down by cost in just a minute. But first, kind of some almost bonus round type things. We're going to say what each of us recommends or would rather do. We can have a little conversation based on the type of trip it is. Let's just say that you are a first-time visitor or you're talking to a first-time visitor. What do you recommend?
On property.
Agree 100%. I don't know that the conversation has to go further. Now, okay, you have a value only budget. Okay?
Okay.
And you're going to go for your first time ever for a week with your family of 4. that same value budget, just say, can put you in a slightly larger room with a full kitchen at Town Place Suites for the same amount of time. Would you still say on property?
Yeah, it's first time.
I agree.
It's first time. Like, I think, like, the kids, I remember staying on property and the kids' face and just, I mean, it just is priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, you can save some money, but just, again, that Disney magic, that cast member interaction, all the things that we have said, it's, first time. Now, first time you do it, and then the next time you're like, all right, well, I can still over at Flamingo Crossing stay and have a larger room,
have a little more.
Then it's your second visit. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But seriously, first time, no, 100%.
I agree. And we'll get back to our little list, but I was just thinking of this too. One of the things we didn't cover about on versus off that we experienced at, for example, the Aloft is the mental exhaustion and physical exhaustion at the end of the night, and the difference between on and off. And, having to, go wait in maybe a little bit of a lengthy bus line, but then getting back to your resort and having a short walk there, as opposed to making your way back out to a parking lot with your one kid in your arm, getting in the car, putting him in the car seat, getting back to the room. All of a sudden your key card doesn't work the way it did at Aloft. So I think those play in as well. That goes down to some of the transportation and travel, but still. All right, budget travelers. On or off?
Possibly off.
I'm going to say wait for the math.
Okay.
Because this is another, I know I keep saying surface level, but I think for most people, if you said, I'm on a budget, should I stay on or off property at Disney? So many people are going to say you should stay off property.
Right.
And I don't know that that is true. Exactly.
Yeah.
Large groups.
On, because, and I'm like, I feel like I'm hesitating because I would say the value All-Star Sports, one of those sports music or
multiple
movies.
Rooms and yeah.
And because it's fun when you get something like that.
Yeah.
Whereas it doesn't matter really because you can always request because like, when we go with Rob and Tina, I think about that, we're always requesting and sure we're by each other, but I think it's just large groups are fun depending on the groups and ages.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a hard one just to say one or the other. Cause then I think, okay, let's just say we were going to go with, and it depends on if we were going to go with our family, all four of us. That'd be crazy. Rob and Tina's family, all four of them. Mm-hmm. And then some of these strays, like the boyfriends and the Lacey's friends and all, right? And all of a sudden we got a group of a dozen folks. Mm-hmm. That's one where I could see more. You really start to look at Airbnbs and Verb. You know what I mean? Like in that aspect.
Yeah.
But if you were strictly sticking to hotels, I would have to agree with you completely for on property.
Yeah. Because then like the values, for example, y'all can hang out and the kids can play and, they have all those big areas. Yeah. But if it is raining and you have to be in one room, that's going to suck.
That's going to be tough.
But if you are off property, the rooms are bigger and it is more comfortable if all y'all were stuck in a room for a little while.
Yeah. It's definitely one that has so many variables.
Yeah, that one's
like first time visitor to me, there aren't a ton of, the only variable is budget.
Right.
And like we said, we're going to prove that may not matter.
Correct.
So, all right. How about a couple's getaway? Whether it's just a couple or multiple couples.
On.
I have to agree. On. I mean,
again, depending, like, I don't know.
Look, here's the thing. If we're going for a couple's weekend and we have the ability to stay anywhere on property.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's just going to beat doing anything that you would stay at off property. I mean, like I would rather, and we've done this before, we go with Rob and Tina and we've stayed at like Caribbean Beach. We've done that twice now, right? What would it have been like in those same trips staying at Flamingo Crossing? And no offense to Flamingo Crossing. But there's going to be a time that we're going to probably spend at the pool. There's going to be time
Right.
that, so you have to think of those things. And that's something we didn't even talk about. Are you planning a no park day during your trip?
Right.
Because if you are, what the heck are you going to do at an off-property resort most of the time? Unless it's
You're
one of
just
those
gonna be
bonnet creeks that has its own, if you're looking at Town Place, which has a great pool area, the Town Place Spring Hill, it's got a great pool area, an outdoor bar, a restaurant and all.
That's all you do. Though.
That's all you do, though.
Right.
You've got nothing. You're going to have to leave that area in a vehicle, in a car, your own car or something to go do anything else. So I think that really plays into it, and especially if you're looking at like a couples type trip. Annual pass holders. The rates you can get for annual pass holders, often up to 35% off, I think makes perfect sense to stay on property. You have an annual pass for something. It's not just to get in the parks whenever you want.
True.
It's also for these types of discounts.
Yep.
What about Run Disney weekends?
Oh, yeah, on.
I don't think there's any other choice.
I
You're
would
going to
say
hate yourself, and everybody's going to hate you that is with you if you stay off property for a Run Disney event.
Because you have to, first of all, you have to get up so early, period.
Right.
Period. Like, what was it, 3 a.m. we got up when was our Run Disney, and we were staying at the
on
Value?
Property. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're off property, you got to have all the transportation time. You got to find an Uber or drive, deal with parking. You don't want to do any of that. What about festival trips?
That's kind of hard. Part of me says on, but then I just say on to everything.
I know, and I think there's a reason for that.
But off would be fine.
Yeah.
Because if you're strictly going for a festival, then you're probably gonna find something and we're always at Epcot because that's where the festivals are, obviously. So you're gonna find something to do in Epcot, or if you're like, let's take a break, let's go over to Hollywood just to, I don't know, walk around and whatever, then, or just to like ride the Skyliner. The point is I feel like morning and night you can have that off property time and experience.
I can agree with you. As much as we just want to say on property for anything out of all of these, I think if you're going to spend most of your time at Epcot from open to close of the festivals, driving to and from or Ubering or using, that's the other thing. You got to think the festival booths don't open till 11.
Correct.
So at that point, if that's what you're focusing on, your off-property shuttles aren't quite as big of a deal because they're going to get you there in time.
Correct.
So that's one we could go with. All right, let's do some real-world breakdown.
Okay.
Right? It's math time. Rhonda, are you excited? Did you get your calculator out?
No.
Do you have a calculator other than the one on your phone?
Yes.
Okay.
It's somewhere.
It's with
We
our
have to
tax
do our
stuff. We use it for our
taxes.
taxes.
Ugh.
All right. So here's the example we're going to use, and I was trying to do an apples to apples type comparison.
Okay.
Okay.
Which
you can do, but this will set
very
you
hard.
up. It's hard, but this will set you up to do any comparison you want. If you want to compare a moderate or a deluxe to an off property, you can do it.
Yeah.
And the off property may come out way ahead. If you want to do, an Airbnb, like whatever you want, you can throw it into this basically.
Okay.
So we're going to go and look at a family of 4, 2 adults, 2 kids, for 4 nights. And I happen to pick June 8th to 12th, right?
Okay.
So just random so I could get some prices.
Okay.
We're going to look at Disney property all-star movies
Okay.
versus Flamingo Crossing off-property Home 2 Suites.
Okay.
I like this one because Home 2 Suites has not a full kitchen, but it has like a microwave. It's got a larger fridge. It's got some extra amenities, and the rooms are definitely larger.
Right.
But it's not
That's
like
that little galley when you walk in.
Yeah, it is. But it's not like trying to compare an all-star movies room to that one at the Fairfield Inn or whatever, right? So they're very comparable rooms. All right, the nightly rate at Disney, this was using their summer offer, which is available to everyone. This is not a pass holder, Florida resident. This is available to anyone through Amy at MEI-Travel.
Yep.
Everything we've talked about is available through Amy at MEI-Travel, even
Correct.
off property, okay? You're looking at a nightly rate of $153.85. So that comes out to your room subtotal of $614.40.
Okay.
Your only taxes are your standard taxes. That's $83.08. You have no resort fees, and you have no parking fees. So your total lodging is $697.85. $2,000.48. Right?
Not bad.
We're going to do this with...
Why don't we do this? Just kidding.
We're going to do this with or without a car rental. Now, if you are on property, you really don't need a car because you can use all that transportation.
Correct.
So no cost to a car rental. You will not pay for any kind of theme park parking. It's included with your stay. So
correct.
If you drove in and you have a car, you can drive to the parks. You don't have to pay. So your total transportation cost is $0. We're going to talk about breakfast because of the fact that a lot of these off properties have a free hot breakfast.
Correct.
Let's just say that every single morning you went for the 4 mornings, right? And you got 2 adult Mickey waffle platters and you got 2 kid ones.
Okay.
It's going to come out to about $50, which is $200 total for your food. So your grand total to stay at All-Star Movies for those days would be $897.48.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
That's it. Now let's move over to the Home 2 Suites.
Okay.
Your stay per night is $20 less a night, $133.23.
Wow.
So immediately on paper, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Your room subtotal is $532.92. Your taxes, they're a little bit more off property because they have some additional taxes.
That's crazy.
Right? So that's going to come to about $135.
That's crazy.
Then their parking is $80, right? So if you drove in, now of course you can take this $80 off if you are going to do something else. But
correct.
Let's just say you're not parking. Let's just say that you got to use an Uber. That still could come to $20, probably more a day. So I think it's fair to keep that in there. So our total lodging at All-Star Movies was $697.48 on a room that was $153 a night. Our total lodging at Home 2 Suites is $747.97, even though the room was only $133 a night.
That's crazy.
So it's more. It's basically $50 more.
Right.
Okay, that's only what $10, $12, $12.50 a night. So it's not a huge difference. Now, theme park parking, $35 a day. So if you go for 4 days, you got to pay $140 in theme park parking. That's assuming that you have your own vehicle.
Right.
So that brings your grand total to stay off property. Your breakfast is included every morning, right? $887.97. Only $10 less overall than it would be to stay on property.
Wow.
But you don't get all those advantages we talked about by staying on property, right? Now, let's just say you do have to rent a car.
Right.
We'll put in an average of about, I looked it up real quick, it was like $206. Add a little gas. Let's just say $250.
Okay.
You got to add that into your total, right? And you're definitely paying the parking, and you're having to pay to go to the parks and everything and park there. You're at $1,137.97. So compared to $897.48 on property at All-Star Movies. So it is not cheaper in this scenario to stay off property.
Yep.
And that's just math. All right, a few things to be aware of if you are looking at booking some of these hotels that are very, very close.
Yeah.
They're basically on property. The JW Marriott at Bonnet Creek, their resort fee is $56 a night. Their parking fee is $38.
Jeez Louise.
So whatever room rate you see,
yeah.
add all that.
Yeah.
The Signia that is over there in Bonnet Creek, you're looking at $50 resort fee, $40 self-parking fee. Add $90 to every single night that you see, right? The Waldorf Astoria, that's going to be high up no matter what. $50 resort, $40 parking. If you go to the Four Seasons, that's $50 a night, $30 parking, right? Swan and Dolphin, that is as on property as you can get. You can use a lot of the Disney transportation. Doesn't matter. You're still going to have to pay a $40 per night resort fee. Mm-hmm. If you bring your own car, because you drove there, that's $36. Finally, let's look at two places that are right there at Disney Springs, like Hilton Buena Vista Palace, $41 a night resort, $38 for self-parking. The Renaissance Orlando, which was the B Resort, for example, that's $45 resort fee and $30 self-parking. So those are the things you have to think about.
Right, and all that, basically you can add up for resort and parking $100 on top of everything else.
Yeah, all of those. So again, if you are...
So if you see the $133.23...
At one of those resorts.
You're adding another $100, so you're talking $230.
Right.
When then you could just go over to value and stay at 153.
Yeah. And I totally understand pinching pennies.
Yeah.
But you got to know how many
Pennies
you're
to
pinching.
pinch.
Right. You have to know how many you're pinching.
Right.
Because I do see where, let's just 153 in June is a wonderful rate for all-star movies, right?
Yeah, it is.
But let's just say it's 200 a night.
Right.
And that Signia off property is 150 and you're staying 7 nights. That seems like, again, surface level, wow, this is a huge savings.
Yeah.
But you haven't seen what all else goes with it. So those are all the different things you have to think about when you're choosing.
Yeah.
I would say, again, the first thing to do is sit down, though, and put in all of your budgeting items when you're planning this trip.
Yeah.
So before you go to Main ST Magic /travel, you fill out a free quote with Amy from MEI-Travel. You sit down and say, here's the price per night we want to spend on our room.
Right.
All in, including transportation and whatever that may include. Here's what we want to spend per night on food. Are we a family that eats breakfast?
Right.
Are we a family that has to have a midday break? Are we a family that needs car seats? Are we? And you kind of list all those out.
Oh, yeah.
And I can guarantee, this is a lot of math. This is a lot of thinking.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to do all that. Let Amy with MEI-Travel do it for
And
you.
she will.
And she will. So go ahead, hit her up. All right, before we wrap up, we're going to read a couple of comments from our Facebook group. We posted out there if you were team on property or team off property.
Oh.
We got a lot of really great comments, so I'm going to keep this post pinned for now because some of them are long, a lot of thoughts, a lot of wonderful thoughts. Go out, read all of them. I'm just going to read a couple right now, starting with Justin, who said, put me down for anywhere in the Disney bubble. The theming and convenience make it an easy choice for us. But I'm curious to see when you do a review of the Evermore Resort in Orlando. It looks pretty amazing from what I've seen.
Ooh, what's that?
We really want to do Evermore. It is that big, huge resort now with the man-made lagoon. And all that's right there in Orlando. And so we have looked. One of the times that we are going to potentially look, this might be news to you, but we're trying to find a time to get together this summer potentially with my brother, his kids, my dad. And we were talking about renting an Airbnb or something. I would like to look at Evermore because they have a lot of these homes, larger homes. They have larger rooms. And if you want to talk about a place that is an all-in-one inclusive feel, this has it. Yeah. So this is one of those when we talk about off days, you'd want to be staying at somewhere like Evermore.
Absolutely.
So we will try and check it out soon. Molly said, team on property. Due to the distance we live from the parks, it does not make sense for us to stay off property. When the only reason we are there is to spend time in the parks. We did it the first time. We brought our kids and basically swore to never do it again.
Aww.
We talked a lot about kids and what that can do staying off property. If we lived close and had a day trip or weekend trip planned, then I could see why off property would be worth exploring. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Jody says, team on property, like to park hop, so being on site makes that easier. Although got upset when they started charging for parking on site. Glad they got rid of that. Only thing Disney's ever gone back on in price, as far as I can remember.
100%.
I will do a night at Disney Springs Brewery before Disney Cruise. She actually makes a really good point that we did not bring up, which is if you plan on park hopping. Because, especially, if you stay off property and you have a rental car or you brought a car, you're driving to the parks, right?
Yeah.
I understand that the $35, you can go to park at Magic Kingdom, pay your $35, take the receipt,
Right.
go hit Epcot, Hollywood, and you're not going to pay again. That covers you for the whole day, even if you park hop.
Right.
But now you're taking a vehicle and going from park to park to park.
Yeah.
As opposed to the simplicity of hopping on a bus in the morning, heading to Magic Kingdom, hopping on a bus and going to Epcot, and then whatever it may be.
Correct.
Jennifer said, for our family, it's off property.
Oh.
We go Airbnb, so everyone has their own room and space, plus a lot of them have their own pools. A lot of the Airbnbs, not the rooms specifically. But I would stay there. If it was just my husband and I, we'd probably stay on property, but with kids, we need the room.
Oh, I totally get that, Jennifer. I would too, and I completely agree with that because you do want some room and you have it there, and it is worth it sometimes.
Yeah. And it's, we've talked about our kids not wanting to share a bed
100%.
anymore. And this is, this is a situation where you don't have to worry about that because you don't even have to share a room most of the time.
Oh, 100%.
So definitely an option. Ben said, we have done both, but now we firmly reside in Team On Property and Team DVC.
Ooh.
Nothing beats the full Disney bubble experience. One of the main advantages that Disney has over other vacation destinations is the fully immersive bubble that provides our family a break from the outside world.
Yeah, and that's true too. You get in that Disney bubble and it's that magic that you just don't see the outside world. And sometimes it's good to stay in there and not like leave, because then it is a little sad.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, it's a great place to get back to and hang out. But it's still, I feel like it's still weird and I'm still sad. I remember when we did the Airbnb with your parents and we went over to Disney, and I mean, it was great. We had a great pool. We had your whole family. But I was like, oh,
yeah, it's a little sad.
Like leaving and coming back to the Airbnb. I was just sad because it was like,
well, and
you're outside of that.
There's not a lot of vacation destinations, including basically any other park, where you can go and be fully contained in a bubble. Mm-hmm. I understand that you could go to Disneyland and stay at one of their 3 hotels, right? Yeah. And you're right there at the 2 parks in downtown Disney, but you continuously see the outside world, right?
True.
And the bubble is so much smaller.
Oh, yeah.
When you think about going to most anywhere, you're not contained within a bubble where you can truly escape from the outside world. So if you have an opportunity to shut off work, shut off your email, shut off your kid's school, whatever's going on back at home, it's similar to being on a cruise in that way.
Yeah.
When you're on a cruise, you really aren't leaving the bubble. You might hop on an island, like Nassau.
Right.
But for us, we don't even do that on a cruise.
Right.
We just get off at Castaway Cay. We'll do Lighthouse Point this time. So we're really never leaving that bubble.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier to detach from the rest of the world, I think.
100%.
When you can stay within like that. All right. We got one more from Cheryl. Says, on property, we've added up the additional cost, parking, gas, car rental. Thank you, Cheryl, for not just swimming on the surface and being lazy in your floaty or your inner tube, right? She got under the water. She dove down, and I'm proud of her for that. It comes pretty close to on-site prices. So for us, we enjoy the convenience of not having to drive around Orlando traffic, which we did not bring up.
True.
I-4, that's another. When you're looking at these, see if the route to get to the parks is going to put you on I-4.
Yeah, that's true too.
That can be major. Or 192.
Yeah.
If you got to drive 192, you may not want to be staying wherever your off-property is. That being said, one of the main things I loved about Disney was the Magical Express and the luggage being brought to your room and not having to pick it up at the airport. That was such an amazing perk, especially when you have kids. Maybe one day they'll bring the luggage service back. I feel like the conversation about on-property and off-property really only became a debate coming out of COVID when we lost a lot of these things.
Yeah.
When we lost the free Magic Bands, the Magical Express, the luggage transfers. When those went away, the hour early entry, right? Yeah. The 60-day free Fast Pass booking compared to 30-day. When those went away, I feel like that's when the debate started. And were you still getting value by staying on Disney property, even though you lost so much?
Right.
So
that's true.
That's up for you to debate.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we got for today. Of course, if you want to hear about everything that we have coming up, there's going to be a lot of it. Some real exciting stuff. Go ahead and hit subscribe and get brand new episodes every single Tuesday and Friday. And then finally, Rhonda and I would both be very thankful if you could please leave us a rating and review.
Because it'll help our show grow.
That's all we've got, and we'll see you real soon.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts, Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.